My name is Dionne, the lead clarity coach here at S&R Creative, and I'm so glad that you decided to join us for this free training. Woo-hoo. You are going to leave today feeling confident that whichever marketing agency you choose to work with will be the best fit for you. In fact, these tips are so good that no matter who you're hiring or deciding to work with, they're going to help you make a confident decision.
Okay, so question number one, this is your why. What do you need from your marketing agency and why are you going to hire them? So first, I think it's important to know that if you're hiring a marketing agency or a marketing resource, it's okay that you don't know everything about marketing. As a matter of fact, that's why you're hiring them. You're hiring them to be the marketing expert, not you. So while you don't need to know everything about marketing, you should have a clear idea of the results you're looking to achieve. And be sure that you're communicating your idea about your results with clear expectations for the agency or the resource you hire. So again, you don't need to know everything, but you do need to know, what do you want? For example, are you looking for a more cohesive online presence? So whether that's your website, social media channels, YouTube, etc. Are you looking to reach a very specific audience? Perhaps you're even looking to make sure that your traditional marketing presence, so for example, like a conference booth, is on point and you're very confident in it. So it's important that you establish these expectations from the beginning. Namely, so both you and the marketing agency or resource that you hire are both aligned, but also so you can prevent any disappointment further down the road. This one in particular is near and dear to my heart, and this is why. Many people don't communicate their desires clearly. And I think that goes for business or really just in general, because they believe the story that saying what you want or communicating your desires very clearly is mean or some way unkind. I'm here to tell you today, this is not true. I don't want you to think, I thought they would do this or I thought they would do that for me and I'm disappointed, and then only to realize that you actually didn't verbalize that to them. So just keep that in mind. You have to know what you want, and you must make sure that you remember, marketers are good, but we cannot read your mind. If you express exactly what you want to be accomplished, then I think you will be able to maximize what you get out of your marketing resource or marketing agency. For example, if you decide, you know what, based on what I need for my business, I need to hire a full service team like S&R Creative because I need them to cover all aspects of marketing. Or you may realize that you could just use a person to come in and do one particular part of marketing for you. And so you just need to find a specialist who focuses on that thing. So again, no matter what, before you strike out with an agency or resource, you must know what it is that you would like to get from them and be sure that you're able to communicate those needs and desires clearly.
The second question that you need to ask is, can they create a personalized plan for me? One size does not fit all, especially when it comes to marketing. The approach by each company is different, even if services or products are similar. You always want to make sure that you're highlighting what makes you different and stand out. For example, if you are working with a marketing agency that already has preset packages, you need to discuss with them if that preset package is actually what you need or if you need to explore a custom package. Maybe their last client needed 20 social media posts a month, but it doesn't mean that you need that. And not every social media channel is a good fit depending on the company. If you are a clothing line, you would have a better fit on a visual platform like Pinterest or Pinterest instead of Twitter, which is more focused on words. If you are in talks with a marketing agency who can't create a personalized plan for you, then stop the conversation immediately. The entire point of finding an outside resource is to find someone who can work with your business. So that means you need to be aligned from the beginning. Your marketing agency should be able to create a marketing journey for you that takes into consideration where you are currently in your branding and exposure and what it will take to reach the goals that you have in mind. It should be unique and aligned with your company's values and style of operation. It should be personalized. So if they can't answer the question, is this personalized for me or custom, then you don't need to be working for them.
Question number 3, speaking of who you're working with, make sure that you keep in mind when you're hiring a marketing agency, you're essentially gaining a new teammate. That may be a temporary teammate, but you're gaining a new teammate. So So you want to make sure that you actually like them. I know that may seem pretty obvious for many people, but you would be surprised. The person that you hire or the agency that you hire will have a huge impact on you and your business, because ideally you'll be collaborating with them and you'll be communicating very often. You do not need to add any additional frustration to your life by hiring a person or a team who has the skill set, the technical skill set to do the work, but as it relates to EQ or the personal skills, you don't jive. The whole goal is to make your life easier. So you want to be able to trust that the marketing team or marketing specialist that you hire has it handled, and you can go back to focusing on what you do best for your business. For a new marketing plan to yield concrete results, we believe that typically you need to have about 3 to 12 months to prove that out. So for example, here at S&R Creative, we have a particular service that's called Marketing on Demand, where we can step in and we cover marketing needs for an organization between hiring a full-time resource in the interim, just so they can fill that gap. So we would consider that a bit of maintenance. If you're partnering with an agency full-time, you must know who you're going to be working with, because again, you're going to be working with them a lot. Even if it's digital communication or virtual communication, you're going to have a lot of interaction with them. And so you want to make sure that you are a good fit. So one of the ways you can determine whether or not an individual or an agency is a good fit for you is do a little bit of research. Start by checking out their website, their social media channels. Do they share what goes on behind the scene? Do you feel like you have a good read on their culture if it's an agency, or them as an individual and what they value if it's a specialist? What kind of values do they have? And do you feel like it's aligned with your company and your company's values? Do they seem approachable? Do they seem knowledgeable? So especially if you're going to hire someone to do one particular marketing task for you, you want to make sure that from what you can see from your research you do before you have a conversation with them, that they have demonstrated that they have the technical expertise that you need. And whenever you make that time for either them to come visit you or for you to go visit them, make sure you ask questions. If it's a specialist, ask them questions about themselves, what they value, how they like to work with their clients. If it's a team, make sure you ask questions about the team members that you'll be working closely with. Because something that is important to remember is if you work with an agency, the person that you engage with on the front end of the engagement, so for business development, to sign the contract, to scope the project, may not be the only person that you're working with once you actually start the project. So it's important to know that if you're working with an agency, you should keep in mind that there are probably other team members that will touch your business and the aspects that agency is delivering for you. So you need to make sure you know those people are. And of course, be sure to trust your gut. Remember, you're gaining a new temporary teammate, and teammates are much like shoes. They must fit from the beginning. If they start out feeling just okay, it is guaranteed that they're going to hurt later on.
And who wants that? No one.
Exactly.
Yes. And so we're moving on to our fourth question. How do they measure success? Success can be measured in more than just numbers. It's not just about followers and likes. And so it can be these intangible things, like how confident do you feel talking about your business? Do you want to share your website or business card? You feeling confident and proud of the work that has been done is the goal. And when you are proud, you want to share with others. Marketing is not a straight line to success. There are ebbs and flows, but the key is being consistent. Together, you and the marketing agency, our specialists, need to be able to decide what success will look like in the long term and the short term. And you need to be able to work together to actually achieve those outcomes. Sometimes those outcomes can be this. It's being proud of your online presence for the first time. Sometimes it's landing a new client. Let's say you've been working and you haven't had one new client in 3 months. If you start working with an agency and then you get a client, that's a success. Sometimes it's being featured in a magazine. Only you know what success looks like for your business, but you need to make sure that you communicate that with your agency partner so that you are in alignment. As long as your agency is delivering some kind of forward momentum, then I would consider that a success. Beware of someone who promises you the world for $19.99 in just 30 days. There's a healthy way to look at success, and that's what we want to do here. Make sure you and your marketing agency are on the same page.
Exactly. And for our final question that you should be sure to keep in mind when hiring an agency or a specialist is, are they a Swiss Army knife or a one-trick pony? What you need today for your business is probably not what you're going to need tomorrow, because as your business grows and you experience success, your strategy will need to change to accommodate that success. So you want to be sure that the agency or specialist that you are aligning with is someone or an agency that you can grow with. Avoid hiring the one-trick pony and see if you can find the Swiss Army knife of agencies or specialists. You want your marketing to be cohesive. So that means that even if you hire someone just to do a website or just to do print collateral, you need to make sure that the website, that print collateral, and any other marketing that you do fits together seamlessly. Because what you're really trying to do is either to establish or maintain your firm's brand position. If you work with 5 different specialists, they all bring something different to the table, and it may look nice, but it's also important to make sure that when you put those things together, that they look cohesive and they look like they're all telling the same story of the same company, your company. So when it comes to marketing, do not be short-sighted. Be sure that you're planning your marketing resources as you plan for the success of your company, and that you're hiring someone or a team that can go the distance with you. So here are some important capabilities to consider when you're vetting agencies. Strategy and business development, that's something that's very important to consider. Graphic design, web development. I think it's important to also note that just because someone could come up with a design for your website, for example, does not mean that they have the skills to develop it, and vice versa. So make sure that when you're considering someone to work with you on your website, I feel like that's a place that a lot of businesses start, is with their website, which makes a lot of sense because it's your virtual front door. But just make sure that if you're hiring one resource, that they have both skill sets or they have access to a skill set they do not currently possess. Social media management, YouTube management, photography, and videography. As we know, video is one of the top ways that we all are consuming content. So making sure that you're keeping this in mind when you're thinking about agencies or specialists is important. Also, copywriting. None of this will actually matter if the words don't match up with the visuals and the message is lost. So making sure that either you or someone that you're hiring in to help you with your marketing resources has copywriting skills. That also goes into newsletters and then search engine optimization, because as I mentioned with your website, it's very important, obviously, to have a website that looks nice and that communicates what it is that your business does. But it's also important that you work with someone who knows that there are certain tags that need to be added to the site so you can make sure it's optimized. And then finally, public relations. As Dionne mentioned, perhaps success for you looks like being featured in a magazine. So while that is some marketing, you would also need to hire an agency or a specialist that had public relations and that particular skill set, because that is going to be required for that. And I do want to mention, this is not an exhaustive list. I'm sure there are other things that maybe are more relevant to your business or things that we don't even have here listed, but it's just meant to demonstrate that these are the skill sets that are important to consider when you're looking to hire an agency or a resource, so that you don't forget about something that you'll regret later. And we're not saying that you must start out with the full service agency. We're just simply suggesting that along your company's journey, it is likely that either multiple or maybe even all of the functions that are mentioned are something that you're probably going to need long term. So just keep it in mind when you're thinking about hiring an agency for support.
Excellent. As a recap, let's go over the 5 questions you need to ask before working with a marketing agency or specialist, or anyone really. 1, what do I actually need? Identify clear results and those expectations. 2, can they create a personalized plan? Does it make sense for your company and goals? 3, who will you be working with on a regular basis? Just like a shoe, is it a good fit or will it leave you hurting? 4, how do they measure success? What does a win look like? And finally, are they a Swiss Army knife or a one-trick pony? Sometimes you need a specialist, but if you already know you will need help on multiple things, can you find someone who can help you in all those areas when you're ready? Before we end, we're going to answer a few questions we received ahead of time. Our goal is to be as practical as we can with our answers. As additional questions come in, please drop them in the comment box. If you have a question, chances are someone else does too. Let's all help each other. Here's the very first question. What budget is reasonable when hiring a marketing agency?
Yeah, I'll take this one, Dionne, because this is one that I hear a lot. So the rule of thumb is 7 to 10% of revenue is a reasonable marketing budget in general. That's the rule of thumb. And so sometimes people will say, well, I'm just starting my company, so I don't have any revenue yet, so it's hard for me to say. So I would say to come up with a good estimate. Think about how much money you would like to make for that year. And then say, okay, 7 to 10% of this needs to be allocated, at a minimum, needs to be allocated toward marketing. So say, for example, you're looking to make $100,000 at the end of the year, then 7 to 10% of that, so $7,000 to $10,000 should be allocated toward your marketing. And actually, I think most people don't realize this. When it's a new product or a new service, that number actually goes up a little bit. So it can get up to as high as 25%. And to give an example, when you think about a new iPhone or a new Samsung or a new technology product, for example, or even clothing, something that's in the textile industry, when something new comes out, you see it more. You get mailers about it. You see digital ads. Well, that's because they're upping their marketing budget and their effort around that because they're trying to build a bit of a groundswell. So again, the rule of thumb, 7 to 10%, but I do think it is worth keeping in mind that when it is something brand new or you're really looking to gain traction quickly, that can go up to maybe even 25% of overall revenue.
Okay. We have our next question, which is, what should you do if you're working with someone and you don't think you're a good fit? I'll take this one. If you're working with someone and you don't think you're a good fit, the first thing that I would do is make sure that you have access to all of your credentials. So if they set up a website for you, if they opened up an email account for you, make sure that you have the password and the username and that you have everything that you're going to need so that if you end that engagement, you'll be able to walk away having all of those things so you don't get stuck. The last thing that you want to do is find out a month later, oh, I needed to get this login, and then now you're no longer working with that person and they ran out of Dodge and you don't have that information anymore, and then you're stuck. So just always make sure that you're getting your credentials, your passwords, you're asking a lot of different questions. And then once you have identified, okay, this is not going to be a good fit, make that exit strategy. Figure out, okay, am I going to end my contract with them? Are we going to break the contract earlier? Make sure that you're prepared to have a conversation and list the reasons why I don't want to be in continuation with you. That way you're more confident about going forward to the next step and what you need, because it helps you do a little bit of reflection. But I would definitely make sure that you get all of those credentials, because we've had so many clients that we are trying to track that down after the fact, and it's a lot harder.
Yeah, it's funny because it's really like a breakup, right? So if you are, and it doesn't have to be bad. I think breakups can be amicable. So to Dionne's point, when you are thinking that you may be switching a resource, I mean, I would advocate actually having a conversation with them first after you've done some reflection to be sure that you were clear, because I think that not communicating clearly is a source of a lot of dissatisfaction. So it could be something as easy as there was an assumption that we need to get cleared up, and once we do, we can discover a new path that we can go forward. And if not, fine, you can part ways, but making sure you have all the things you need to be able to continue building on what they've done.
Okay, question number 3. How soon should I actually hire a marketing agency or specialist?
I think you should work with the marketing agency or specialist as soon as possible. And the reason is, like I mentioned earlier, even products and companies and brands that are well established, they continue to do marketing. So I think sometimes people think that marketing is a thing you do one time and then it's done. That's not true. And it's an ongoing effort, because really, in our view, in my view at least, marketing is a conversation. It's an ongoing conversation you're having with your audience or prospective audience about your good, your product, your service. So it never really stops. So if you haven't hired one yet and you're not a marketer yourself, then I think you should probably get that resource on board as soon as possible.
And just, and think about yourself. Let's take the example of going to Target. Let's say that there's a sweater that you really, really like. Chances are sometimes, unless you really want that sweater, you might not get it the first time. You might say, well, I might want to see if it's on sale, or I might want to go back. Mm-hmm. And so you kind of go back to that thing over and over again. And so with marketing, a person is generally exposed to something at least 7 times before they make a buying decision. So if you're not in a position where you're getting out in front of your potential clients, then you're not even considered a possibility. You're not considered an option. So that's why marketing is so important. So the sooner, the better. We have received a few questions in the comments. So let's go ahead and take care of these questions here. First question, can you ask, what is your mix of employees and contractors?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think that, again, most of the confusion comes in relationships, and this is business or personal, because people don't ask what they want to know? I think that's a very fair question. And I think that if someone hesitates or doesn't want to give you that information, I think that that is probably a red flag, because here's the deal. If they have a company and say it's 50% employees and 50% contractors, as long as they're able to fulfill your needs, then it actually doesn't matter. And if they say they have contractors, if you're worried about security, for example, depending on what type of company it is, it's just making sure that they have NDAs in place and things like that. But I think that's a great thing to know, because going back to your point, Dionne, about credentials and making sure you have access and that your information is kept secure, knowing who has access to your information, whether they're bound by an employment agreement or they're a contractor and so they have a different type of agreement, is important. So I think you should definitely ask that.
Yes. The next question is, how important is certification? So that could be a marketing certification or sales or technology certification. Is that important when you are actually trying to hire someone? I don't necessarily think that certifications are the only thing that you should consider. There definitely should be a consideration. You do want to actually work with somebody that actually knows what they're doing. There are a lot of times that the gloss can look very fancy. Yeah. And so a person who has the fanciest website or the slickest label, you might think, oh, they really know what they're doing, but they literally could just be really good at that and not have any other kinds of talent. And so one of the things that you want to do is you want to follow it up. It's always okay to ask for references if you are unsure about somebody's qualifications.
Or even if you're sure,
it's always good. Yes, it's always good to ask for references. And it's always a good idea to just make sure that you are able to ask questions that give you a sense of if they're knowledgeable about it or not. Because if you start asking some questions and they are cagey or they don't have an answer, then that might be an indication to you that I can't really necessarily trust what I'm seeing. So just kind of have your guard up a little bit and keep your mind focused on what am I trying to accomplish and can this person do that, and just
I think to echo your sentiment, I think you said have your guard up. I think maybe stay curious.
Yeah.
And the deal with the certifications, I do think that, to Dionne's point, it's not the end all be all, but it is important. So for example, when it comes to email automation, so there are several tools you can use. There's MailChimp, there's Constant Contact, there's Pardot that is some type of Salesforce, there's Marketo. Well, each of those systems do the same thing, but they are all very nuanced. And so sometimes people may market themselves as having knowledge in it, but having knowledge in something and being able to execute and go in and make it happen from start to finish for you is different. So I have some examples in my mind where people say, oh, I know how to do fill in the blank technology. And then they get hired and the person who hired them is like, okay, well, here are the pieces that you need. And they'll go and they don't actually know how to do it because they were familiar with it or they only did their approval. So they never really built it from start to finish. And so I think this is why making sure you are clear about what you actually need. So do you need someone who can build an email campaign, or do you need someone with just cursory knowledge so they understand how what they're going to do is going to apply to an email campaign? So I think that is important to make sure that you're clear. And when people say yes, you ask that second question. What do you mean? And can you give me examples of when you've done it? And can you tell me how it works? I think about a conversation, Dionne, that we had with someone and they threw out a particular methodology, but through conversation, it didn't really seem that they had a real strong working knowledge of it. They just had a knowledge of it. So yeah, I do think you should ask questions for sure. Stay curious.
Yes. Well, that is all the time that we have for questions. Thank you so much for the ones that came in. This actually concludes our webinar today. We enjoyed our time with you. If you do have any additional questions about what we talked about today or just marketing in general, please send us an email. We have our email listed on the screen for you here. We're at info@snrcreative.com. We love to be a resource for you. We will definitely see you next time. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.